Welcome to Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum. Rochester Movie Makers is a local educational cooperative. We learn by doing. Sign up now at rochestermoviemakers.org.
And welcome to another edition of Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum. I'm your host tonight, Stan Main. I am the chairperson and founder of Rochester Movie Makers. Rochester Movie Makers is an educational cooperative. We work together with local filmmakers here in the Rochester area to learn actually by doing. Rochester Movie Makers has an annual series of summer short films that we work on where we read screenplays at the beginning of the summer and shoot those screenplays throughout the course of the year. And we also have another promotion that we're working on in the wintertime called Mind to Movie, which is a 72-hour film challenge. All of that information is available at our website, rochestermoviemakers.org. It's free to sign up. You don't have to have any experience whatsoever to be a member of Rochester Movie Makers in any sense or attend any meeting. You know, all you have to have is an interest in making films, and you'd be surprised at how many people have that interest here in Rochester, New York. This is the Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum, where we talk to local filmmakers about films that they are making here locally in the Rochester area. And with me today is one of the most famous of our Rochester Movie Makers directors, Adrian Esposito. Adrian gets a lot of press, and welcome, Adrian.
Hello, nice meeting you too.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Adrian, tell us a little bit about why you're in films.
Well, it all started when I was little, actually when I was younger, because I am not little in real life.
Well, you're a pretty big guy.
Yeah, I know, and it all started when I was young. I remember before I could speak very well, because I didn't have the best speech because of my autism/Asperger's syndrome, and I couldn't speak well, but I did understand the messages in movies like the original Planet of the Apes, the black and white Outer Limits television show, and later on The Matrix. And my mom was amazed at how I was able to understand those films, and I eventually started dictating my own stories to her that she would type out on the computer of my, they were like the Planet of the Apes movies. I would just create my own story.
Your own science fiction story.
Yeah, that was similar to that, but it would be like, I don't know, like Planet of the Lizardmen or something like that. And eventually my mom took me out of special ed. She pulled me from special ed and put me in a private school called Hope Hall, and the reason she did that is because one of the teachers there told my mom that I was never going to be able to learn anything, and she would just have to live with that. So she put me in the Hope Hall, and I started to learn how to read and write and everything else, and eventually I just really I really got more and more interested in films and movies, and I just decided that I wanted to make my own movies to tell my own stories in a way.
You make mostly documentaries now.
Yeah, because it sort of is the easiest, because you don't have to have actors and crew and set.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the movie that we're going to see, and that is called We Can Shine from Institutions to Independence. Tell us, what's this film about?
Basically, this documentary is about people with developmental disabilities, how it started out for them in the big institutions, and how things have changed for the better.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and watch Adrian's film, We Can Shine from Institutions to Independence. And when we come back, we'll spend some time talking with Adrian more about the film and more about what his plans for the future are.
My name is Adrian Esposito, and I am a filmmaker. I also have Asperger's syndrome, a disability on the autism spectrum. I was educated almost exclusively in the special education school system in New York State. One of the things I like to do is imagine what it would have been like for me if I had been born earlier, say 1944. By going back in time, I will explore the conditions for the developmentally disabled in those times. My story will be told through the experiences of people with developmental disabilities who lived then. Gradually, we will wind up in the present and meet people with developmental disabilities who have dreams, talents, and great abilities. Institutions like New York City's Willowbrook State School were created with good intentions in mind. Their purpose was to educate and provide vocational skills training for those who could not learn in the regular school system. Some of the trades taught were farming, janitorial, and domestic work. Some residents did work outside the institutions.
The first institution was built right here in Syracuse, New York. It was called the Asylum for Idiots back in 1854. And we were the first institution built in the entire nation, to be honest with you. And we had other institutions develop across New York State as a result of our institution, such as Newark, Craig Colony, as well as Rome Developmental Center, Rome State School as it was known then. So there was many different institutions that were a result of Syracuse. But ours was the first one in the entire United States. And it was built for the education of children with mental retardation, and it was at taxpayers' expense. Probably in 1854, things weren't so bad because they were taking people in and trying to assist people who were from all walks of life, whether they were mentally retarded or not, that were having a hard time in life. And I think there was a lot of good programs going on because we have evidence of there being workshops where people were being taught skills such as weaving, and also ladies being taught how to iron properly so they could go into people's homes and be what were called domestics or colony girls, where they would make a living living with the family and being paid by the family for the services they provided. And so there was a lot of different skills, and plus there was a farm in Syracuse. We had several farms that were going and other institutions as well to help support the institution. So there were many things that came about from that. And so in the beginning, I think things were pretty good, but as time went on, the institution started to get very overcrowded. And when things get overcrowded, nothing good comes from it. And the more people you have, it means you have to have enough staff available to help support them. And unfortunately, in a lot of the institutions, they didn't have the staff. So the overcrowded conditions really caused it to be very deplorable, and a lot of abuse and things occurred as a result of that.
The thing that I remember the most is when I came in to the developmental centers, I can remember going down these dark and dingy hallways. No pictures on the wall, nothing. I mean, you could smell, you couldn't see it, but you could smell the urine and the feces on the furniture, and just some of the people that were there who were nonverbal, they laid on mats all day long, and mostly like my parents, their parents were instructed to put them in a state institution too, because much like mine, they told the parents that we were never going to amount to anything.
While at Cobblestone Arts Center, I met Eric and Christine. They both attend Cobblestone and want to have careers in the arts. They are also in love and have decided to have a committed relationship. Eventually, they would like to live together.
I entered a contest for a free commitment ceremony, and I wrote a letter for that contest, and as I said about I won the contest, and as I said, I called Christine's dad if I can if I can propose to her, but we did. It's just like as a radio to me. And plus, it really was a beautiful day to have it. For me, I love it here because I want to be as a singer and a dancer, and so is that. Here I am Capstone.
I love it here. I like to sing, act, and dance and everything else. And I like to be a movie star someday.
Want to kiss with me or not?
Yeah.
Okay, come on, let's kiss.
Okay, good.
I suffered a lot of abuse myself, and I also seen other people get abused. For example, most of the people I lived with were nonverbal, so I was the only verbal one in this one building. And when I saw the abuse, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I just decided that I had to do something about it. And when I would go and speak to the administration about not only the horrid conditions, but also the abuse that we suffered, I oftentimes would get punished because, you know, the staff didn't want me to be letting people know what was really going on. And to be honest with you, when I went into the institutions, I was walking. And as you see now, I'm not. And the reason for that is because I've always had cerebral palsy, so that wasn't the issue. But the issue was when I started advocating for people, they didn't like it, so that's where the abuse came in. I got, for example, when I was in Rome, I got hit in the back with a lead pipe, which crushed my spine. So therefore, I couldn't stand up anymore. And it didn't do me no good to talk to my parents about it because, for one thing, they couldn't do anything about it because once you're a ward of the state, your parents lose all rights to you. At least back in the 60s, early 70s, and sometimes 80s. And I didn't want to put any more heartache on them than they already had.
How did the staff treat you and the other residents?
We had good people, we had bad people. I used to get the helping out of our with sticks and belts, and I got my head kicked into the wall. Got beaten with extension cords. And they used to hire anybody from the street, and they get 2 to 3 to 4 weeks of crash course on mental retarded. And they stick you in the ward to take care of these people. I saw a lot of abuse go on at Wilbur.
How much more can he take? He can't speak for himself. I have to talk for him.
I see staff beat the individual with sticks, wet towels. They used to punch them in the face. They did everything, and they got away with it. They really short. They took shortcuts, and they used to take a pill with the same pill that they used to scrub the floors with. They bathed the individual with, and they used the same rag on everybody to wash men. So that's disgusting.
And was there a lot of illness there because of
A lot, yeah, there was a lot of diseases like scabies and chickenpox, you name it.
My success is from my family, because they deserve everything, and I've been through enough. I'm just glad to see they have done some with themselves. It doesn't matter if you have two pennies rubbed together, but you have family, you got a roof over your head, food in your stomach, and you're grateful for what you have. You can't take it with you, so sometimes you gotta just take whatever gifts are given. If that day you have a cup of milk with your coffee, that's all you have. That's your success. You don't need to make $1 million to be successful.
And welcome back to Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum. Adrian, that was just, those are really interesting clips. Now this is just a part of your film. And can you tell me a little bit about why you chose these particular parts for us to watch tonight?
I think the reason I chose, like, for instance, the scene with Eric and Christine is because a lot of people who do not have developmental disabilities, they see people with disabilities like Eric and Christine who have Down syndrome as childlike and not capable of falling in love and having a sexual relationship, which I think a lot of people without disabilities, developmental disabilities, think is taboo and just wrong for a person with Down syndrome to have a loving sexual relationship. So I chose that clip, and it's also included in the film to show that that's baloney, and that I think that that is possible and should be acceptable in our society, because people with disabilities are just like everyone else, basically.
And just because two people have disabilities doesn't mean their children will have disabilities, is that right?
No, not necessarily. I don't know if it's not an independent film, but have you seen the movie, I Am Sam, how Dakota Fanning didn't have a disability, but so I think I know where you're coming from on that.
Right. So how did making the film change your mind? Or change your opinion on people with disabilities? Did it have any impact on you when you were making the film, or did you start out with the thesis and when you were finished you had the same opinion?
Well, before I made this documentary, when I was in high school and having a really hard time in high school, I was really angry and frustrated that the school education system put me in a special ed program and not in a school of quote-unquote normal people, because, and I was really angry and frustrated about that. But years later, when I made this film, and even now, I look back and I think, well, they're basically just like everyone else, like I said before. It's just that they might be in bodies and in different aspects that make them not appear who they really are inside, and who, and mentally too.
Okay. So in the film you talk a little bit about, some of the clips you talked a lot about the self-determination that some of these people have. What does self-determination mean to you?
Well, self-determination means to me basically, without self-determination, that program, people would basically say he needs to be put in a group home, he's going to go to a sheltered workshop in a Dayhab program, and so. And I really don't want that, and neither do a lot of other people, I think, with disabilities. And they just want to be able to make their own choices. Like for me, I want to be able to make documentaries and eventually feature films, and not be told that this is what you have to do. And
so self-determination is a program. You're talking about that there's a legitimate part of some organization that's created something called the self-determination program.
Yeah, it helps people with disabilities want to achieve these goals. Like, I want to be able to live on my own someday, in an apartment, and right now I'm working towards learning how to drive and getting a car. I may probably a used car is more likely to happen, more realistic, because new cars are just expensive nowadays.
It sounds like it could be a whole film on learning how to drive and getting
Yeah,
a car.
yeah.
For Adrian. Okay. Why did you choose Eric and Christine's commitment ceremony for this film? Why were they so important to you? What were you trying to show with that?
I think for Eric and Christine's commitment ceremony is to show that people with disabilities have the right to get married. Even though it wasn't they weren't really getting married, it was a commitment ceremony, but the fact that in the documentary it showed that it looked like they were getting married in that type of situation is proof enough that people with disabilities want to be able to get married. And that brings up another topic. There is a thing that I learned about through my mom and other people, that if a person with and I probably will make this into a documentary too, that if a person with a disability gets married to another person with a disability, I think they lose either their SSI or Social Security, which, and I thought that was just, pretty ridiculous. So hopefully I can make that into a documentary with the self-advocacy groups and see where it goes from there.
Okay. Now, this film the clips that we saw looked really well produced and well shot. What were you shooting on? What kind of equipment did you use to make this film?
At the time, I was using a semi-professional Sony camcorder that I had recently bought, bought with funding and stuff. Well, it's a long process, but I got it at Row Photo, and the results are pretty, as you can see, are pretty.
Is it a high definition camera?
Yeah, it's HD. It's HDV, and right now, I actually got a new camera. This is a real professional. It's a professional camera. I got it at B&H in New York City. It's a Canon X1H1, and that can produce just as great imagery and photography.
And what about other equipment? Did you use any lighting equipment? Did you use microphones?
Yeah, I used the attachable mics like you see here. Oops, sorry.
A lavalier microphone?
Yeah, lavalier microphone, and
so you have all this equipment, so you've made a fairly significant investment in this business.
Yeah, the lights I've used are not big and fancy, like the big kind. But they achieved a good effect, and also we used what are those things you fold them and they're for bouncing light off of?
They're called bounce cards, I think.
Bounce cards. We used some of those too.
Okay. And who helped you on how big was your crew on this set and making this film?
It was basically me, my mom, and my teacher from Animatus, Fred Armstrong.
And he was what, a producer, or what did Fred do for you?
Fred basically helped me with the camera work and gave me some advice on set when I was interviewing my subjects.
Anybody else help you with the edit, put that together, or do you do all that yourself?
Yeah, I have two people who helped me with making this documentary. The first one who helped me do the editing and gave me suggestions was Mike Boas from Animatus Studios, and he also has a films company called Mad Dog Films, and he helped me a lot with the editing and giving me suggestions. And another person who's also my ResHab worker gave me help with choosing, like, some advice on what should go there and what should go there. So just a little, not a little advice, like the part with Colin. Originally that was going to come later in the film, the little 4-year-old with Down syndrome, but he suggested to me and my mom to maybe it should come before Eric and Christine and all that. And I think that was a really great suggestion. It actually made the film what it is now.
And how did it help?
It helped because when the mother was talking, the mother and father were talking when they were talking to me when I interviewed them. They were saying they want them to achieve, to be happy and to be able to find a job and be in love and all this stuff. And then later on in the film, a little later on, we see Eric and Christine, and that kind of showed what she was talking about.
So what's next? What's your dream project that you want to get done?
Basically, right now, I'm doing 2 documentaries. The first one is called Liberation Unit, and that one is about World War II veterans from the 71st Division who discovered and liberated Gunskirchen which was a concentration camp. And the second one is Native Trees of Knowledge, which is about Native American medicine men and healers. And I've actually interviewed 3 people so far. Ken Cohen, who was a pupil of Rolling Thunder, who was a Cherokee medicine man, used to be, and Ken Cohen's wife, who's a Mexican Mexican woman who has studied in the indigenous ways of healing and medicine.
So when you do these interviews, do you write all the questions, and do you ask all the questions, or do you get some help with that from somebody?
My mom usually writes the scripts, and she's a big help on the projects.
Great. Lucky for you, you got that mom. She's hanging in there. She's also your press agent, isn't she? She gets you enough press.
Yeah.
You're everywhere.
Yeah.
Including RCTV.
Well, I have to say I owe a lot to her because she's doing a lot for my life. You know, without her, I'd be a sunken ship.
Well, congratulations. You picked a good mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about the other films or availability, or is it possible to buy your films, or how do you sell them?
The 2 films I've made, Aging Trees of Knowledge, which is about people who've lived through World War II in Europe and Asia, like my grandmother is, and also the sequel to it, which is called Aging Trees of Knowledge 2, Commander Sankofa, Servant Leader. Those 2 are available on my website, espocinema.com. And
Espo or Esposito? Espo?
Espo, E-S-P-O, Cinema, all one word. And also my film We Can Shine that's available through Amazon.com.
Wow, great. How did you get it on Amazon?
It was a long process, but
story?
Yeah.
Well, Adrian, thanks so much for coming and being a part of Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming in, and you're a very talented guy, and certainly somebody to keep an eye on here in Rochester, New York. So this has been Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum, and thank you for watching.
This has been Rochester Movie Makers Directors Forum. Rochester Movie Makers is a Rochester not-for-profit educational cooperative that meets regularly and offers anyone interested in making short and full-length films an opportunity to learn by doing. The tuition is free, and there are meetings for screenwriters, producers, actors, and crew. Sign up for more information at rochestermoviemakers.org.